The galactic trade station Omega-7 was old. It had floated in space for more than 3,000 years. Millions of creatures from hundreds of planets had walked through its metal halls. Some came to trade, some came to hide, some came to disappear forever. The station was like a city in space. It had markets where you could buy anything. It had dark corners where you could sell anything. It had laws, but the laws only worked if someone was watching. In the lower levels, no one was ever watching. On a quiet morning, a small Terran transport ship docked at Bay 19. The dock workers barely looked up. Terran ships came and went all the time. Humans were everywhere in the galaxy now, like insects that had learned to survive in every environment. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. A young woman stepped out. She was 23 years old. She was short even by human standards. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple knot. She wore plain clothes that had seen many journeys. She carried only one bag, old and worn at the edges. She did not look dangerous. She did not look important. She looked like exactly what she wanted to look like. Nothing. Walked through the busy dock without speaking to anyone. Her eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail. The security cameras, the guard positions, the exits. She had learned long ago to memorize her surroundings. It was a habit that had saved her life more than once. She had not come to this station for trade. She had not come to hide. She had come to find her brother. He studied alien life forms on distant colonies. He was smart and kind and believed that science could make the galaxy a better place. 6 months ago, he had sent a message from Colony Theta 4. He had sounded scared. He had mentioned something about the Syndicate. Then the messages stopped. Had contacted the Galactic Peacekeeping Authority. They had investigated for 2 weeks. Then they closed the case. Likely predation, they wrote in their report. Your brother probably wandered into dangerous territory and was killed by local wildlife. We are sorry for your loss. But did not believe them. Was careful, was smart. Would never wander into danger without preparation. Someone had taken him. Someone had made him disappear. And was going to find out who. The lower levels of the station were a different world. Up above, the halls were clean and bright. Down here, the lights flickered. The air smelled of rust and smoke and things that had died long ago. The creatures who lived here did not want to be found. Walked through narrow passages until she found what she was looking for. A cantina with no name. A place where information was bought and sold like any other product. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. The cantina was dark and crowded. Creatures of all shapes and sizes sat at tables, drinking strange liquids and speaking in low voices. Many of them looked up when entered. A human woman alone in a place like this was unusual. Some of them smiled in ways that were not friendly. Ignored them all. She walked to the back of the cantina where a massive creature sat alone in a booth. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin and small eyes that seemed too intelligent for his brutal face. His name was, and he knew everything that happened on this station. Sat down across from him without asking permission. Looked at her for a long moment. Then he made a sound deep in his chest like rocks grinding together. It was a laugh. A small human, he rumbled. His voice was so low that felt it in her bones. You are either very brave or very stupid to come here alone. I am looking for someone, said. Her voice was soft and calm. Everyone is looking for someone. The question is whether they can pay for what they seek. Reached into her jacket and placed a data chip on the table. It contained half of everything she owned, converted to universal credits. Enough to buy a small ship. Enough to start a new life somewhere far away. Small eyes widened slightly. He had not expected this. Who do you seek, small human? His name is, he is my brother. He disappeared from Colony Theta 6 months ago. Was silent for a moment. Then he leaned forward and his voice dropped even lower. You seek the one taken by the Syndicate. Felt her heart beat faster, but her face showed nothing. You know of him. I know of many things. Your brother saw something he should not have seen. The Syndicate does not like witnesses. They take such people and sell them to collectors who pay well for rare specimens. Paused. Humans are rare in certain markets, especially scientists who know valuable secrets. Where is he now? The Syndicate keeps valuable merchandise in their compound. It is in the old industrial sector of this station, the place that was abandoned decades ago. Shook his massive head slowly. But you cannot go there, small one. You are soft. You are weak. The syndicate employs warriors as guards. Do you know the? Nodded, she knew they were massive creatures with natural bone armor that could stop most weapons. They were bred for violence. A single could kill a dozen armed soldiers without difficulty. They will break your bones for entertainment, said. They will make you scream for days before they let you die. Find another way to honor your brother's memory. Go home, live your life, forget. Picked up her bag and stood. She had what she needed. Thank you for the information, she said quietly. Watched her walk toward the door. Something about the way she moved bothered him. It was too smooth, too controlled, like a predator pretending to be prey. Wait, he called out. Paused at the door but did not turn around. What were you before you came here looking for your brother? For a long moment did not answer. Then she spoke, her voice barely loud enough to hear. I was nobody, she said. I still am. She walked out into the darkness of the lower levels. Sat alone in his booth, thinking. He had sold information to thousands of desperate people over the years. Most of them were dead now. He had already begun composing this human's death notice in his mind. But something nagged at him, something in her eyes, something in the way she had looked at him without fear, without anger, without anything at all. The syndicate had taken her brother. They had powerful guards, advanced weapons, and no mercy for anyone who crossed them. And this small, quiet human woman was walking toward them like she was going for a morning stroll. Ordered another drink and tried to forget the cold feeling in his stomach. He had a sudden, strange thought that he would be hearing about this human again very soon. He had no idea how right he was. The abandoned industrial sector of Station Omega-7 was a place of ghosts and shadows. 50 years ago, it had been alive with factories and workers. Now it was empty. The lights had failed long ago. The only sounds were the groaning of old metal and the dripping of water from broken pipes. This was where the syndicate had built their fortress. Had spent 3 days watching from the shadows. She did not sleep much. She did not eat much. She simply watched and learned. The compound was large, built from the bones of an old manufacturing plant. It had high walls topped with sensors. It had 3 entrances, each one guarded day and night. Inside, she counted 47 armed operatives moving in careful patterns. They were mostly a reptilian species with 4 eyes and quick reflexes. Dangerous, but not the real threat. The real threat was There were 12 of them, each one stood more than 2 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in natural bone plates that could stop energy weapons. Their arms were thick as tree trunks. When they walked, the floor shook beneath them. A normal person would look at this fortress and give up. A normal person would realize that attacking such a place alone was suicide. Was not a normal person. On the 4th night, she moved deeper into the tunnels that surrounded the compound. She was looking for weak points, places where the patrols were thin. She found several. She memorized them all. She was examining an old ventilation shaft when she heard footsteps behind her. Little Terran. The voice was wet and cold, like something dead trying to speak, turned slowly. Stood in the tunnel, his 4 eyes reflecting what little light existed. He was smiling, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. Behind him, 2 more emerged from the shadows. You think you are invisible? The first one said. His name was, though did not know this yet. The syndicate has been watching you since you arrived on this station. 3 days you have circled our home like a hungry animal. The boss wants to know why. Said nothing. She simply stood there, her hands at her sides. I am looking for my brother, she finally said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. Laughed. It was an ugly sound, like bones clicking together. The researcher, the one who saw things he should not see, moved closer, confident in his advantage. He is gone, little human, sold to a collector far away. You will never find him. Where? It does not matter. You will not be going anywhere. His 4 eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. The boss has decided you are valuable too. Terrans are popular in certain markets. Something about how soft you are, how easily you break. The other 2 laughed and moved to surround her. Come quietly, said, reaching for her arm. Fighting will only make it worse for you. What happened next would be talked about in the station's lower levels for years. Did not scream, she did not beg, she did not even speak. She simply moved. Her hand caught S's reaching arm. She twisted her body in a way that seemed impossible for something so small. There was a wet snapping sound, and S's arm bent in a direction it was never meant to go. He started to scream, but was already past him. The second was fast. His species was known for their reflexes. He had drawn his weapon and was raising it to fire. He was not fast enough. Closed the distance in a heartbeat. Her fist struck his throat with perfect precision. He dropped his weapon, choking. Before he could recover, she had grabbed his head and introduced it to the metal wall. He did not get up. The third tried to run. He made it exactly 4 steps. Caught him from behind. She swept his legs and brought him down hard. He tried to fight, to claw at her with his sharp fingers. She avoided every strike like she knew what he would do before he did it. 3 seconds later, he was unconscious. The entire fight had taken less than 15 seconds. Stood in the tunnel, breathing slowly. She was not even tired. She looked at her hands. They were steady. They were always steady. The galaxy had a view of humans that was mostly wrong. They saw Terrans as emotional creatures from a harsh planet. Fragile, weak, lucky to have survived at all. What they did not understand was that Earth had not made humans soft. It had made them hard in ways that did not show on the surface. Humans could run for hours without stopping. They could function through pain that would disable most species. They could keep fighting long after their bodies should have quit. And some humans, the rare ones, had learned to turn violence into an art form. Had been orphaned at 7 years old. At 10, she was recruited into a program that did not officially exist. For a decade, she had been trained by people who believed that the quiet ones were the most dangerous. She had learned to move without sound, to fight without anger, to kill without hesitation. She had been discharged at 20. The reasons were classified, even she did not know all of them. But the skills remained. Walked back to where lay whimpering on the ground, cradling his broken arm. She knelt beside him. "Where was my brother sold?" she asked. Her voice was still soft, still gentle. "I do not know. Please, it is above my level." "Who would know?" "The boss, Lord, he handles all the important sales." Lords repeated, "Tell me about him." He has run the syndicate for decades. He is in the inner compound, the throne room. Please, I have told you everything." Stood up. "Thank you," she said politely. She walked away into the darkness, leaving 3 broken behind her. Watched her go, still clutching his ruined arm. He had been in the criminal underworld for 20 years. He had seen violence of every kind. He had caused much of it himself. But he had never seen anything like this small, quiet human woman. She had not raised her voice once, not when threatening, not when fighting, not when breaking bones. She had been calm the entire time, like she was doing something boring, something routine. Was suddenly very afraid, not for himself anymore. He was afraid for the syndicate. He was afraid for Lord. Because something was coming for them. Something that looked like a tired young woman but moved like death itself. And it would not stop until it had what it wanted. Managed to drag himself back toward the compound. He had to warn someone. He had to tell them what was coming. But deep down, he knew it would not matter. The lesson had been taught. Now everyone would learn it. Stories travel fast in the dark places of the galaxy. By morning, every criminal, smuggler, and shadow dealer on Station Omega-7 had heard about the Terran girl. 3 syndicate operatives had been found broken in a maintenance tunnel. One of them, a veteran named, was still shaking when he told his story. A small human woman, quiet voice, dead eyes. She had destroyed them like they were nothing. Most people laughed at the story. The syndicate employed the most dangerous beings in the sector. A single Terran could not threaten them. It was impossible. Lord did not laugh. He sat on his throne in the heart of the compound, thinking. His body was made of living crystal, a feature of the species. When light struck him, he glowed with colors that most species found beautiful. Many had underestimated him because of that beauty. They were all dead now. "One human," he said softly. His voice echoed through the throne room like music. "One small, soft human has made 3 of my operatives look like fools." His advisors stood before him, afraid to speak. "Find her," commanded. "Bring her to me. I want to understand what makes this Terran so unusual." He sent 20 of his best operatives into the tunnels, 15 warriors and 5 guards. It was enough force to capture a small army. It was more than enough for one human girl. 26 hours later, one crawled back to the compound. He was the only survivor. "She is coming," he gasped, blood dripping from wounds all over his body. Lord, she is coming. Then he passed out. Panic began to spread through the compound. Guards who had laughed at the stories stopped laughing. They checked their weapons nervously. They jumped at shadows. The security footage told the story. Had not fought them head-on. She was not stupid. She knew that even she could not defeat 20 enemies at once in open combat. So she had made the environment her weapon. She had lured small groups into narrow passages where their numbers meant nothing. She had collapsed catwalks onto pursuing guards. She had waited in darkness and struck without warning. The warriors, so fearsome in open battle, had been led into maintenance tunnels too small for their massive bodies. They had become trapped, unable to move, unable to fight. And through it all had never stopped moving, never stopped hunting. The security officers watched the footage with growing horror. The Terran girl moved through their forces like water through sand. She was never where they expected. She was always one step ahead. But the most disturbing thing was her face. She never smiled, she never frowned. She showed no anger, no fear, no pleasure. She simply worked, efficient and calm, dismantling their forces one piece at a time. By the end of the 26 hours, she had killed 18 operatives and left 2 more injured to fight. Lord watched the footage 3 times. Fascinating, he murmured. Absolutely fascinating. His remaining guards did not share his appreciation. Lord, one advisor said carefully, perhaps we should negotiate. Give her what she wants. Her brother was sold months ago. We can provide the information. And show weakness? His crystalline features shifted with anger. If word spreads that a single Terran forced the Syndicate to surrender, we will lose everything. Every enemy we have will smell blood. Every ally will question our strength. But my lord... No, we will end this here, rose from his throne. Double the guards at every entrance, activate all defensive systems. When she comes, we will be ready. His remaining forces scrambled to obey. Outside the compound, rested in a hidden alcove. She had not slept in 2 days. She had wounds on her arms and legs that needed treatment. Her body was tired in ways that normal rest could not fix. But she did not stop. She cleaned her wounds with supplies from a stolen medical kit. She ate dry rations that tasted like nothing. She closed her eyes for exactly 2 hours, her body trained to wake at the slightest sound. When she opened her eyes, she thought about. She remembered when they were children before their parents died, had been afraid of the dark. He would come to her room at night and sleep on the floor beside her bed. She had been 3 years older, but she had always felt like his protector. I will not let anything hurt you, she had promised him once. She had failed that promise. The Syndicate had taken him, and she had not been there to stop it. But she would not fail again. She would find him. She would bring him home. And anyone who stood in her way would learn what happened to people who hurt her family. Stood up and gathered her few belongings. Her body ached. Her hands were bruised. She ignored all of it. The compound had doubled its defenses. Guards stood at every corner. Weapons were charged and ready. The remaining warriors formed a wall of muscle and bone around the central buildings. It did not matter. Had been watching them for days. She knew their routines. She knew their weaknesses. She knew exactly how she would get inside. The galaxy had a saying about humans. They were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They were not the most advanced. But they never, ever gave up. Other species found this confusing. Why continue when the odds were impossible? Why fight when defeat was certain? Why not simply accept reality and move on? Humans did not think that way. Somewhere in their evolution they had developed a quality, that logic. They called it many things: stubbornness, determination, heart. Whatever it was, it made them terrifying. Because a human who had decided to do something would keep trying until they succeeded or died. There was no negotiation. There was no surrender. There was only the goal and the will to reach it. Moved through the shadows toward the compound. Behind her, the bodies of Syndicate operatives marked her path like dark monuments. Word had spread beyond the station now. Ships passing through carried the story to other ports, other worlds. A Terran girl was hunting the Syndicate. She did not shout, she did not threaten. She simply killed, quiet and calm. And she was winning. In the throne room, Lord felt something he had not experienced in decades. It was cold and sharp and sat in his chest like a piece of ice. Fear. He crushed it down and refused to acknowledge it. He was Lord, he had built an empire from nothing. He would not be defeated by a single human. But the fear remained, small and persistent. Because somewhere in the darkness, the Terran girl was coming. And the body count was still climbing. Lord's throne room was designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose high into darkness. Crystal pillars lined the walls, catching light and throwing it in every direction. The floor was polished so perfectly that it reflected everything like a mirror. Anyone who walked in would see themselves surrounded by infinite copies, watched from every angle. It was a room built for intimidation, for control, for power. Lord sat on his throne at the far end, surrounded by his 4 personal bodyguards. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were the best killers that money could buy. 2 giants, each one capable of tearing a ground vehicle apart with their bare hands. 2 assassins, so fast that they could draw and fire before most beings could blink. Around the throne room, another 30 guards stood ready. Every one of them was armed. Every one of them was watching the entrance. They had been waiting for hours. The Terran had broken through the outer defenses sometime in the night. The 12 who had guarded the entrance were no longer responding to communications. The waiting was the worst part, not knowing when she would come, not knowing how. Then the main door opened. Walked in like she was arriving for a casual meeting. She was covered in blood, though most of it was not hers. Her clothes were torn. A long cut ran across her left arm, still bleeding slowly. She looked exhausted, like someone who had not slept in days. But her eyes were clear, her hands were steady, and she walked toward the throne without hesitation. The guards raised their weapons. 30 targeting lights appeared on her chest, her head, her heart. "Stop," Lord commanded. The guards obeyed, though their weapons remained trained on the small human. Studied her with genuine interest. His crystalline body shifted colors, reflecting his thoughts. "So you are the one who has killed so many of my people," he said. His voice was beautiful, like a chorus singing in harmony. "You have made quite an impression." Stopped in the middle of the room, surrounded by guards on all sides. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Do you know how many of my operatives you have killed in the past 3 days?" 32. His features shifted in surprise. "You counted." "I always count." "Impressive," leaned back on his throne. "I can see why my people were afraid of you. There is something unsettling about your calm. Most beings show emotion when they fight. Anger, fear, pleasure, you show nothing." Said nothing. "But now we reach the end," continued. "You are exhausted, wounded, alone. You are surrounded by my best fighters. Even if you are as dangerous as the stories say, you cannot win here." "I did not come here to fight." Oh's voice held amusement. "Then why did you come?" "Where is my brother?" Laughed. It was a sound like wind chimes in a storm, beautiful and cold. The researcher was his name, yes. He was sold to a collector on a planet called Prime 3 months ago. Spread his crystalline hands. "He is far beyond your reach now, girl. Even if you killed everyone in this room, you would never find him. You do not have the connections, the resources, the knowledge." "You are going to give me that knowledge." I was genuinely amused now. "And why would I do that?" "Because I have something you want." Reached slowly into her jacket. Every guard tensed, fingers tight on triggers. But instead of a weapon, she pulled out a small data crystal. It glowed faintly in the strange light of the throne room. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "A data crystal. There are millions of them. This one is special. It contains your entire financial network, every transaction, every bribe, every official you have paid to look the other way." Held up the crystal, letting it catch the light. "It has the names of your partners in the Galactic Senate, the locations of your hidden warehouses, the access codes to your secret accounts." The color drained from crystalline form. "That is impossible," he said, but his voice had lost its music. "Our systems are protected by the most advanced security in the sector. No one could break through. Your security was designed to stop digital attacks, remote hacking, signal interference." Tilted her head slightly. "It was not designed for someone who physically walked into your server room and everything directly." Stared at her. "That is what I was doing for the first 2 days," continued. "While your people were searching for me in the tunnels, I was inside your compound, in your systems, learning everything. The bodies, the fighting, that was all. Secondary, a distraction, though I admit some of it was necessary." sat very still. His bodyguards looked at each other nervously. The situation had changed completely. They had thought they were hunting a desperate woman seeking revenge. They had not realized they were dealing with something far more calculated. "If you release that information," said slowly, "my empire will fall. Every authority in the sector will come for me. My partners will kill me to protect themselves." "Yes. What do you want?" "The name of the collector who bought my brother, the coordinates of his location, every access code and security protocol I will need to reach him." His voice remained soft, almost gentle. "In exchange, this crystal disappears, your secrets remain safe, and you never hear from me again." Thought for a long moment. His bodyguards waited for his command. 30 weapons still pointed at the small human woman who had walked into the heart of his power and threatened everything he had built. "How do I know you will keep your word?" he finally asked. "You do not," admitted, "but you know what happens if you refuse." The negotiation lasted 4 minutes. Gave her everything. The buyer's name was a wealthy collector who specialized in rare specimens. His compound was on Prime, a jungle world on the far edge of civilized space. The security codes would get her through the front gate. After that, she would be on her own. Took the data chip and turned to leave. "Wait," called out. Something in his voice had changed. He sounded almost confused. "You could have killed me. You broke through all my defenses. You had every opportunity. Why negotiate?" Paused at the door. She looked back over her shoulder. "Because killing you was never the goal," she said simply. "My brother was the goal. Everything else was just obstacles." She walked out of the throne room. The guards parted before her like water around a stone. None of them tried to stop her. Lord sat on his throne for a long time after she left. His bodyguards stood around him, waiting for orders that did not come. "What kind of warrior does not want to fight?" he finally muttered. None of them had an answer. Outside the compound, walked toward the docking bays. She had what she needed. Prime was 3 weeks away by fast transport. She would need to rest, to heal, to prepare. But she would get there, and she would find. Behind her, the syndicate compound was silent. 44 operatives had died in 3 days. The most powerful criminal organization in the sector had been brought to its knees by a single human woman. And she had done it all without raising her voice once. Stories would be told about this night for years. They would spread across the galaxy, growing larger with each telling. The tale of the Terran girl who walked into a fortress of killers and walked out with everything she wanted. But did not care about stories. She cared about her brother. And nothing in the universe would stop her from bringing him home. 6 months had passed since walked out of Lord's throne room. 6 months of traveling through the dark spaces between stars. 6 months of following trails that went cold and starting again. 6 months of doing whatever was necessary to reach her brother. Prime had been only the beginning. The collector who had bought was a noble named Moros. His compound was hidden deep in the jungle, surrounded by automated defenses and guards who were paid enough to die for their employer. Had gone through them all. The operation had taken 6 hours. By the end, Moros had been very willing to explain that he had already traded to another collector on a station near the galactic core. He had been so helpful, so eager to share information. Fear could make anyone cooperative. Had followed the trail. The second collector had sold to a research facility that operated outside the law. The facility had been harder to break. Military-grade security, armed guards with real training, scientists who thought they were untouchable. They learned otherwise. The facility had been the worst, had found things there that made her understand why her brother had been taken. He had knowledge about alien biology that certain people wanted. They had been trying to extract that knowledge through methods that no civilized society would approve. Had been hurt, changed, but he was still alive. When finally found him, he had been strapped to a medical table, barely conscious. He had not recognized her at first. His eyes had been empty, like windows into a house where no one lived anymore. She had said softly, "I am here, I found you." He had blinked once, twice. Then something had sparked in his eyes, a memory of safety, a memory of home. His voice had been a broken whisper. "Is it really you?" "Yes, I am going to take you home now. Can you walk?" He could not walk, she had carried him. Behind her, the facility burned. Now 6 months after it all began, A Terran transport touched down at Earth's New Sol orbital station and walked down the ramp together. She held his arm, helping him keep his balance. He was thinner than she remembered. His eyes still had shadows in them that would take years to fade. But he was alive, he was free, he was home. The station was bright and clean and full of humans going about their ordinary lives. Children ran through the corridors. Families reunited near the arrival gates. The sounds of laughter and conversation filled the air. It was strange. After so many months in darkness, normal life felt almost unreal. Looked around with wonder, like a man seeing the sun for the first time. "I did not think I would ever see this again," he said quietly. "I had given up hope. I had not." Stopped walking and turned to look at his sister, really look at her for the first time since his rescue. She had changed. There were new scars on her hands, new lines around her eyes. Something in her face had hardened like soft metal that had been forged in fire. "The news feeds have been talking about you," he said. "They call you the Silent Death. They say you killed over 100 syndicate operatives across 3 systems." Started walking again. News feeds exaggerate. "Do they?" She did not answer. They walked in silence for a while. The station's main corridor was lined with windows that looked out into space. Stars sparkled in the infinite darkness. Somewhere out there, the syndicate was still scrambling to recover from what she had done. Lord had been retired by his own organization 2 months after their meeting. It turned out that had released the financial data anyway. She had decided that his crimes deserved consequences, regardless of their deal. The message had spread through the criminal underworld like wildfire. The Terran girl did not make empty threats. The Terran girl did not forgive, cross her family, and there would be no negotiation. No mercy, only consequences. Other criminal organizations had suddenly become very interested in avoiding Terran attention. "What will you do now?" asked as they approached the transit hub. Thought about the question. She had skills that few possessed, a reputation that opened doors and closed others, and a galaxy full of people who had been told their loved ones were beyond rescue. She thought about all the families like hers, all the brothers and sisters and parents and children who had disappeared into the darkness, all the authorities who had said, "There is nothing we can do," and closed their files. "Rest," she finally said, "for a while." Did not ask what would come after the rest. He already knew. They found seats on a transport heading to the surface. Earth hung below them like a blue and green jewel, beautiful and alive. Home. Pressed his face against the window like he had when he was a child, watching the clouds pass beneath them. "I never thanked you properly," he said without looking away from the view. "You gave up everything to find me, your money, your safety, your peace." He paused. "Maybe your soul." Shook her head. "I did not give up anything, I spent it. There is a difference." "Is there?" "Yes, when you give something up, you lose it forever. When you spend something, you get something in return." She looked at her brother, at the wonder in his eyes as he watched the earth grow larger. "I got you back. That was worth everything I spent." Was quiet for a long time. Then he reached over and took her hand. It was the first physical contact they had shared since she found him in that facility. "I am sorry you had to become this," he said softly. "The person they talk about in the news, the Silent Death." "I was always this," replied. "I just did not have a reason to show it before." The transport began its descent through the atmosphere. Fire bloomed around the windows as they entered, but the passengers were safe. The engineers had designed for this. Terrans had always been good at surviving hostile environments. On the surface, a new life waited. Would need therapy, medical care, time to heal, would need to find work, to build something normal, to learn how to be a person again instead of a weapon. But that was later. For now, there was just this moment. Brother and sister together again, the stars behind them, the earth below, home. The galaxy had learned a lesson over the past 6 months. It was a lesson that would be remembered for generations. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest or the most advanced. They did not have natural armor or poisonous claws or crystalline bodies. But they had something else, something that could not be measured, or a quality that made them terrifying when pushed too far. They never gave up on the people they loved. And the most dangerous Terrans were not the ones who shouted and threatened and made displays of power. The dangerous ones were quiet, patient, implacable. They were the ones who did not need to raise their voices, because they were too busy raising the body count instead. The transport landed softly on Terran soil, helped her brother to his feet. "Ready to go home?" she asked. Smiled. It was a small smile, still damaged around the edges, but it was real. "Yes," he said, "I am ready." They walked off the transport together, into the light. Somewhere out there, another family was losing hope. Another victim was being told that nothing could be done. Another predator was looking at a quiet human and seeing weakness instead of danger. Someday they might come looking for help. They might find a woman with cold eyes and steady hands. A woman who never raised her voice. A woman who had walked through fire to save her brother and would do the same for anyone who asked. But that was for later. For now, there was just this: two people who loved each other walking home through the morning light. It was enough. It was everything.